Welcome to the Third House Podcast. I'm Erica, your host, and together we'll unravel the astrological and psychological tapestry that shapes our lives. Join me as we navigate the threads that connect our chart to our emotions, relationships, and inner world. Get ready for illuminating conversation and insight, because self-discovery has no bounds. Hello, everyone. Welcome to your 2025 year ahead astrological podcast. I will be doing month by month. There will be chapters, so you can easily jump back to each month. However, please listen through to the end because I will be concluding with some general notes and also some perspective on 2026. So in my opinion, I think 2025 into 2026 is really shifting us into sort of a new chapter, a new wave, sort of like 2020 did, but obviously in a very different way. So definitely listen through to the end so that you can sort of wrap up and gain that perspective of what 2025 might be really gearing you up for into 2026. So again, this is not conclusive. I do not include every transit. If you want something more detailed that you can have with you on your device or your phone, I do have a very lengthy, I believe it's about 39 pages, about 60 transits completely broken down with advice based on each rising sign, available on my website. The link is in the description below for that. So if you want to grab that guide first, download it to your device, and then listen through this podcast episode to add additional notes about, anything that comes up for you, please do so. If not, I would definitely take notes regardless, because I do go through a lot of key dates, things to look out for, preparatory shadow type periods, that will definitely help prep you before the actual transit happens. But again, this is not conclusive, so please refer to your own chart, your own placements. And as always, I do offer one-on-one sessions for those that really want to go in depth or just need some help or perspective along the way that's very specific to your fingerprint, your birth chart. And the link is in the description below for that. And lastly, my last announcement, I will be increasing my prices, not drastically, but as we go into the new year, as I'm increasing my workload, I am going to increase my prices. So just be aware of that. Please subscribe and come back each month, especially if you're new here. Every month, I provide a lot of supplemental content, monthly horoscopes that break down the transits in more detail along the way. So again, definitely grab your 2025 yearly guide, which goes into a lot more detail as we go through this, or just grab your notes, get ready, buckle up. And again, don't forget to listen through to the end to really take all of this information and apply it to sort of what you might be gearing up for into 2026. Okay, Taurus risings. Now, January 2025, I'm really going to start January 6th, 2025, when Mars retrogrades back into your Cancer third house of communication, daily environment, exchanging information, any short distance travel. This is where we run errands, go to appointments, but it's also sort of the relationship we have with people in our immediate environment, including siblings. Now, Mars rules your 12th house of the subconscious. And it also rules your Scorpio 7th house of marriage, partnership, whether it's personal and or professional. So there could be something going on with a professional partnership and exchanging information, communication, maybe something going on with a sibling. But all in all, it could definitely have a subconscious effect. on you because Mars does rule that Aries 12th house. So with the Mars retrograde cycle, with Mars backing up into those last degrees of Cancer on January 6th onward, it's really bringing us back to revising anything that was coming up roughly around the end of October 2024, beginning of November 2024. So it's important, maybe you're listening to this early to know sort of what was going on October, November within marriage, long-term partnerships, personal, professional relationships, communication, immediate daily environment, and its effects on your mind, on your subconscious, on your mental health. January 13th, there will be a full moon in Cancer at 24 degrees, hanging out with that Mars retrograde at 27 degrees. So close enough. So basically, as we're getting into the very beginning of 2025, this full moon really illuminates your third house. So on a very basic, literal level, this could indicate sort of taking care of errands, running appointments, taking care of phone calls, paperwork, daily environment, communication type stuff. This could also be you taking care of your phone, your laptop, technology, whatever it may be. But on a deeper level, this could indicate sort of culminating, taking care of something within your immediate environment, or relationships with siblings or people who live in your immediate environment, that something's taken care of, something's culminating, something's being illuminated in those areas. That's also playing a part in this Mars retrograde story regarding a partnership, whether it's business, personal, sort of your own communication, and sort of what's going on mentally. Then it's important to note January 27th, 2025 through February 28th, 2025. Let me get it right. January 27th, 2025 through February 28th, 2025. Venus will be in shadow. So the end of January 2025, it's important to note what's going on with this Venus shadow. Venus is your ruling planet as a Taurus rising, so pay attention to your body, your appearance, your identity. Venus also rules your sixth house of daily work, health, and routines. Sixth house is also side hustles, side work as well. So if you're sort of like a freelancer or anything like that, definitely pay attention to the Venus shadow and retrograde cycle regarding that. But basically, it's important to note, this Mars retrograde is kicking up quite a bit. It could definitely have an effect on sort of your thoughts, your mental process, your partnerships, your daily environment. But then the end of January, Venus enters shadow. And this Venus is definitely, I would pay attention to any contextual clues regarding sort of you, how you want to show up in the world, your daily work, your health, and your routines. As those stories or contextual clues start to build during that shadow period, could definitely tell you what you're going to review and revise in terms of your values and sort of what you really love. Now, January 29th, 2025, there will be a new moon in Aquarius at 9 degrees. So if you have anything at or around 9 degrees of Aquarius, this is your 10th house of career and public recognition. So this new moon in Aquarius, the end of January, could also signal sort of maybe a new project, a new beginning regarding your career and your public recognition. Now, as we get into February, specifically, literally February 1st, 2025, Venus in Pisces. Now, this exalted Venus, so basically a very well-resourced Venus in Pisces, conjunct the North Node at 28 degrees. So Venus, again, rules you. It also rules your daily work, side hustles, routine, and health. Going conjunct the North Node, a potential point of increase in your 11th house of social network and long-term goals. So very well resourced. This is going to be great. But however, when you get into February, whatever starts to increase and shift, just keep in mind that Venus is in shadow. You are going to go through a revisionary period regarding what is coming up around this time. So pay very close attention to this area, specifically goals, social network, daily work, side hustles, and just your overall self. As Venus really amps up this story conjunct the North Node, because when Venus goes retrograde, it will actually meet up with the North Node again, but at its most exalted degree of 27 degrees in Pisces on April 1st. So we'll get to that in April, but I just want you to know that now, to put things into perspective, where this is a very strong revisionary period of giving us an opportunity to really, in an exalted, strengthened way, revise what we really love and value. And for you, it's going to be about, your work, your health, yourself, how you show up in the world, and how that really aligns you to, who you surround yourself with, your social networks, and your long-term goals. Now, on February 7th, Neptune will go conjunct the North Node in Pisces at 28 degrees. Again, this is your 11th house of friends, groups, communities, so your social network, whether it's personal or professional, and your long-term goals. So Neptune's been going through, Pisces for a while. This is nothing new, but when it goes conjunct the North Node, this is important because I actually, in my opinion, think this is part of a cycle. So think back to 2016 when the South Node was conjunct Neptune in Pisces here. Now it's sort of the inverse. It's, Neptune's conjunct the North Node here. So back in 2016, some of you might have seen a more releasing energy or a letting go energy. And now in 2025, specifically February, you might see that cycle sort of coming back around in some weird way, or there might be similar themes. But this time it will be at a point of increase. It will be the North Node, sort of what we're really hungry for, the direction we want to move towards. And for you, it's in that 11th house of your social network and who you surround yourself with and those long-term goals. Now, February 12th, 2025, there will be a full moon in your Leo 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate. This full moon, I'm not mentioning every full moon and new moon in these videos, but this one in particular will actually form a T-square. So it's sort of like a double square situation going on, which basically means that this full moon, it will move quickly, but many of us will feel this one. And for you, I would look out for the area of home, family, property, and real estate, particularly having a lot of pressure on it to act or take action. So basically this full moon in Leo at 24 degrees will form a T-square. So it's going to form a square with Mercury and a square with Uranus in your Taurus first house. So this is definitely going to put quite a bit of pressure on actually Uranus in your first house. So definitely look out for home, family, property, and real estate, and trying to balance it as best as possible with career or public recognition needs, and also making any necessary changes to sort of yourself that you really want to do in order to make a more balanced change or kind of balance between the home and family and the career. So some of you might feel pulled in two different directions. And because this is involving the first house of self and body, you might feel this quite personally. So just keep that in mind. And it is a full moon. The moon moves very quickly, so this will be brief. Just keep in mind that Mercury and Uranus do involve sort of the nervous system. So during this time, we might feel a little jittery. We might feel a little, up and at them, but it will quickly pass with the full moon moving so quickly. Then on February 23rd, 2025, Mars finally goes direct. Hallelujah. I am so looking forward to this. Again, Mars rules at 7th house of marriage and long-term partnership. It also rules your 12th house of that subconscious, your mind, your mental health, sort of what's going on, the more hidden aspects of yourself, the more internal stuff. You've had a long revisionary period with this one, but Mars will go direct at 17 degrees of Cancer in your 3rd house of communication, siblings, again, that immediate environment. So we're kind of coming back to what was coming up in October of 2024. So whatever was really amping up in October 2024, this could signal you having an entirely new perspective around how you want to take action, around what really was starting around that time, particularly its effect on personal and professional partnerships, and also its effect on, your mind or your mental health, depending on where you're at with that. Now, something to keep in mind with Mars going direct, it's going to take a bit to get out of shadow, but as it goes forward for your Taurus risings in particular, it's going to re-enter that area it initially went retrograde in, that Leo 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate. So yes, you could have a new perspective, a totally new way of taking action after you've had some time to revise maybe the needs within the partnership or the marriage, personal, professional, its effects on sort of you mentally. But as Mars moves into that Leo 4th house and it's direct and it's a green light, it's a go, it is going to enter an angular house. So it's going to kick up some heat and some action after a long revisionary period in the area of home, family, property, and real estate. And just, going into the next couple months, especially with all the other retrogrades involved with the North Node, a lot of change and shifts in the beginning of 2025 that are really setting us up for many years to come. So it's very important that we kind of go into 2025 with that perspective, and how Mars' long revisionary period and its effects will be re-entering the foundation of your chart and creating any necessary changes to yourself, any necessary changes that are needed within a partnership, personal, professional, and how it's going to be balanced with your career and your public recognition. March is where, in my opinion, we really start to see the shifts probably more externally. March 1st, 2025 is when Mercury goes conjunct the North Node in Pisces at 27 degrees. So Mercury goes conjunct that point of increase, that point of, life direction in that Pisces 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. It's important to note that Mercury does rule your Gemini 2nd house of earned income, and also your 5th house of creativity, self-expression, children if applicable, romance if applicable. So Mercury's going to, increase a lot of those themes potentially regarding your long-term goals and who you surround yourself with. However, March 1st is when Mercury also enters shadow. So it goes conjunct the North Node, but it enters a shadow period from March 1st through March 14th. So yes, it sort of kicks up something, especially conjunct the North Node, but it enters that shadow period. So it's sort of like whatever kicks up, whatever comes up, it's likely going to be revised, or you might have a totally different perspective regarding the money situation and the creativity, self-expression situation. Also on March 1st, Venus goes retrograde. So remember that shadow period. So Venus goes retrograde as Mercury enters shadow, conjunct the North Node. Venus rules that 6th house of daily work, health, and routines. It also rules you, your body, yourself, your appearance. So Venus goes retrograde, starting that revisionary period of what potentially played out from the end of January through the last day of February. So this is where March starts to really kick up the revisionary, situation with the money, the creativity, the self-expression, how you have fun. With Venus going retrograde and having you really revise the work, the health, the routine, and sort of its effect on your body and how you show up in the world. Now, March 14th, 2025. There's important details about this that I really want to talk about, because on March 14th, we have the full moon total lunar eclipse in Virgo at 23 degrees. So this full moon total lunar eclipse in Virgo is a supercharged illumination, a culmination in your fifth house of creativity, self-expression, children, romance, really where we have joy. If you are an artist, if you are creative, I would pay particularly close attention. If you want to have children or you have children, pay very close attention to this. The ruler of this eclipse, again, is Mercury. And as this eclipse is happening, Mercury is basically stopped and is about to go retrograde, literally within hours. Like the next day, Mercury will be retrograde. So it's sort of like this really strong culmination point happens in the area of creativity, self-expression, children, romance, really joy, how you have fun in life. But again, if you're an artist, especially with Mercury ruling the second house of earned income, I'd pay attention to any creative projects around this time that are sort of culminating, but there could be this revisionary period or this slowdown period as something is really coming to light around this time. That's tying in themes of self-worth, material possessions, and money as well. It's also important to note that this full moon total lunar eclipse in Virgo is going to be opposite Saturn at 22 degrees in your Pisces 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. So there is this sort of revisionary period that we're entering regarding something playing out in those fifth house themes, but also the necessary balance with Saturn's hard work and discipline that might be necessary to kind of get this culmination to take place. But all in all, the 11th and 5th house axis is being very much highlighted for you. So friends, groups, communities, long-term goals, children if applicable, creativity, self-expression, enjoying life, having fun, but also any creative projects if you're any creative artistic pursuits. Then on March 29th, we get the second eclipse. So March 29th, we have the new moon partial solar eclipse in Aries at 9 degrees. So this is a new moon. It's partial, but it is a stronger new moon solar eclipse in your Aries 12th house of that subconscious, sort of what's going on mentally, what's going on with mental health, where you might be reviewing and revising a lot of things, and things you might definitely be feeling the shifts, like I think we're all going to feel in the beginning of 2025. But this could indicate that you might be moving into a period of shifting into sort of a new mental state or a new mental chapter regarding everything that's sort of unfolding. It's important to note that the ruler of this eclipse, Mars, will be in fall by essential dignity. So when a planet's in fall, it's sort of like in a foreign country and it doesn't speak the language. So yes, it is a new moon. You might be moving into a new chapter around limiting beliefs or your subconscious thought patterns, sort of creating new life visions and dreams for yourself. But Mars will eventually move, out of fall. And it might just take a little bit for the actual action around that new chapter to take place. Now, March 30th is important to note because Neptune enters your Aries 12th house of that subconscious sort of, that mental, more hidden aspect of your chart. What's going on subconsciously, what's going on with limiting beliefs, what's going on with your dreams, your life vision that you don't necessarily advertise or share with the world. Because with Neptune entering Aries, the last time Neptune was in Aries was about 1861, so it's been a bit. And so Neptune entering Aries is very interesting because Neptune likes to dissolve things. And it's been in Pisces, which is a water sign, and now it's moving into a fire sign. And not only a fire sign, but a fire sign that really likes to initiate, that likes to do. And I'll get more into the Saturn situation, the Saturn conjunction that's happening here, but Neptune entering Aries could be a very opportunistic period, for better or worse, to sort of dissolve, or in Aries, fire sign, quite literally burn down what is no longer serving you mentally. So now we're into April, and April 1st, 2025, Venus retrograde goes conjunct the North Node. Now, remember, I discussed this a couple months ago, February 1st, when Venus was in shadow, conjunct the North Node. So Venus was direct, but it was entering that shadow period of contextual clues, and for you, around, first house themes of self and body and sixth house themes of daily work, health, and routines. Okay, so now we're at April 1st, where Venus is retrograde conjunct that North Node. So it's going back to that point in February. But this time, it's at its most exalted degree in Pisces. So this is a very exalted Venus. But it's still retrograde, so it's still in that revisionary period. However, it has a lot of strength. So definitely pay attention to your appearance, how you want to show up in the world. Pay attention to any side work, daily work, health, routine stuff that is sort of coming back around in a really strong revisionary way. It's still retrograde, so we're still in that period. But this one is definitely interesting and something to pay attention to for sure. And as I get through the monthly horoscopes, I will go more into detail about this. But in terms of areas, that's what I would pay attention to. Then on April 7th, 2025, Mercury goes direct at 26 degrees Pisces and joins the North Node on April 10th. So really, as we're starting to move into mid-April, Venus is still hanging out there, but Mercury finally goes direct and joins that North Node. So whatever you were reviewing and revising regarding income, self-worth, creativity, self-expression, how you enjoy life, any creative projects especially, or children, if that's applicable to you, there's definitely direct forward movement happening here. It's going conjunct the North Node, so it is sort of overall life direction, clicking us into place for many. However, what's even more interesting is that as Mercury goes direct, joins the North Node, around this April 7th to April 10th period, it will trine Mars in Cancer at 27 degrees, which could indicate that whatever you were reviewing and revising in January 2025 regarding marriage, personal and professional partnerships, and also sort of anything going on, life vision, dreams, subconsciously, mentally, it could definitely play a part in that story. So what was going on mentally, what was going on within marriage and partnership, that's now tying in the theme of finances, children, creativity, self-expression. It's now sort of moving forward. And again, we're talking about the North Node. It's not always these planets, all these personal planets sort of go retrograde and then some of them, click into place with the North Node. So this is very much to do with like where we're headed. Then on April 12th, 2025, we have Venus finally going direct. But also on this day, there will be a full moon in Libra at 23 degrees. So this full moon is really culminating the area of that daily work, health, and routine. That's probably, for many of you, been under a lot of revision for some time with that Venus retrograde, but now Venus goes direct. And what's very interesting about this day is Venus rules over this full moon. So Venus goes direct. It's exalted in Pisces. All is well, all is good. It's very typically, generally speaking, very happy Venus. But it rules over this full moon that's really culminating something around, your work, your coworkers, your routines, your health. So that's pretty significant to me in terms of things moving forward. You're getting a green light, but you're also sort of seeing something, closing something out, culminating something around that time regarding health, work, and routines. Then on April 21st, 2025, Saturn goes conjunct the North Node in Pisces. So we have all these planets going conjunct the North Node in Pisces. And for you, again, it's that 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. And Saturn rules your 10th house of career and public recognition. It also rules your 9th house of higher education, spirituality, long distance travel. But in terms of, career, whether you have your midheaven, maybe you have your midheaven in your Capricorn 9th or your Aquarius 10th, regardless, it is tying in themes of, education, knowledge, spirituality, and travel. But the 9th house is also like publishing as well. So, writing, if that's part of your career, or traveling for your career, either way, look out for any of those themes and sort of how they might overlap in your individual chart in life. But Saturn going conjunct that North Node is really tying in career themes, also those 9th house themes, to your social network and your long-term goals. And lastly, we're really, I'm closing out April, where on April 24th, 2025, Venus has been direct, and now Venus will be conjunct the North Node at 26 degrees Pisces. Again, 11th house, friends, groups, communities, long-term goals. As Venus is direct, it is exalted. It is conjunct that North Node. It is your ruling planet, ruling over your body, yourself, and also ruling over your daily work, health, routines, coworkers. So this is a very strong pull in that direction. Some of you could see themes like first house themes, sixth house themes increasing significantly around who you surround yourself with and your long-term goals. May, as we get into the monthlies, I'll get into more detail, but I really want to jump to May 18th, 2025, when Jupiter at 25 degrees Gemini is going to square the nodes. So Jupiter's been in Gemini. This is nothing new. But Jupiter at 25 degrees Gemini on May 18th is going to square the North Node in your Pisces 11th house, friends, groups, communities, long-term goals, and the South Node in your Virgo 5th house, creativity, self-expression, romance, fun, and children, if applicable. So Jupiter rules your 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. And it's actually going to be squaring the nodes at a north bending, which basically signifies a point of increase on that planet. So there could be increasing themes involving your finances and your self-worth that could be increasing. You could see it definitely coming from, maybe your community is increasing, your social network is increasing, or your long-term goals are increasing. And that is sort of getting you to maybe create this point of increase in that Gemini second house of earned income and self-worth. Jupiter also rules your eighth house, which is another money house. It's just more like long-term money management. So it's like your assets, your investments, your partner's money. So money could definitely be an increasing theme around this time. I'm hoping that for all of you, Jupiter in the second can not only increase your own income, maybe increase a partner's income, but also increase your income potentially through rulership, through those Pisces 11th house themes of sort of your social network and your long-term goals. Then on May 24th, 2025, Saturn enters Aries. So Saturn is going to enter your Aries 12th house of that subconscious, where your limiting beliefs are, but also where your life vision, your dreams, things you don't necessarily advertise with the outside world on a regular basis. So Saturn is, the planet that wants to build, restructure, strengthen. But Saturn in Aries is very concerned about identity. And Saturn in Aries is a very fiery Saturn. And so Saturn is, going from a water sign to a fire sign. We're definitely, I think, collectively going to feel that shift. But I would definitely pay attention to the areas of sort of, obviously your mental health, your overall life vision. What visions do you have that we're talking Saturn, which is very tangible. What visions do you have that you want to make a tangible reality? Also keep in mind, Saturn rules your 10th house of career and your 9th house of higher education, travel, spirituality. Again, it's a publishing house. So if you're like write for your career or publish or anything in those fields, or you travel for work, I would pay attention to that. But Saturn entering sort of the area of the deeper aspects of your mind, you might start to restructure 12th house themes in order to tie into or restructure sort of your career, your public recognition, how you learn, what are your beliefs. So very, very interesting. It's also important to note on May 24th that Mercury will also be conjunct Uranus for the last time in your Taurus first house of self, body, appearance, and identity. This is nothing new. We've had a couple rounds of Mercury Uranus conjunct in your Uranus, your Taurus first house of self. But this is the last time, so some of you might be feeling sort of the lingering last conjunction effects that some of us feel. Mercury does rule your Gemini second house of earned income and self-worth. It also rules your 5th house of creativity, self-expression, children, if applicable, really how we have fun. So some of you might be making any last-minute changes or, rapid sort of changes to to yourself and sort of your approach to money, self-worth, and sort of your self-expression. It's also important to note, this is probably the most important part of May, in my opinion, is that roughly May through August of 2025, Neptune and Aries will be joined together in your Aries 12th house of that subconscious. This rarely happens. So this is very important just transit-wise. But we have the planet of structure, of work, of discipline, of building, with the planet of dissolving. So it's sort of like we could really see the start of dissolving of structures in a fire sign that is very initiating and trailblazing. So it's sort of like dissolving, starting to see the dissolution of old patterns, of old structures that really aren't serving us. And because it's taking place in a fire sign, it could literally be like burning it down to like, like the phoenix, like it burns down to rise from the ashes, essentially. And this is taking place in your 12th house. This is like a mental health house. This is your, what's going on mentally. What are your thoughts? What are your visions? What is that internal experience you have that's not necessarily advertised to the world? And because Saturn rules your ninth house of spirituality and beliefs and knowledge and travel, also your 10th house of career and public recognition, this could quite literally be the dissolving of maybe mental structures that have limited you, that are self sabotage for you, that literally limit and self sabotage your beliefs, your knowledge, your career, and your public recognition. So, something to think about. Again, look at those personal placements, especially if you have anything in the beginning degrees of Aries. That is definitely going to change things and flavor it differently. But this one is going to be very interesting individually and collectively. Now, as we get into June, specifically June 9th, 2025, Jupiter enters your Cancer third house of communication, siblings, transportation, technology, short distance travel, really exchanging information, your immediate environment. It's important to kind of zoom out for a hot second and remember we had that really lengthy Mars retrograde here. And now we have the planet of fortune and abundance and expansion moving into this area. So Mars was Mars was retrograde here. Mars was in fall, so Mars wasn't in really the best position. But now we have Jupiter entering this area. And Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. So now we're entering in a totally different feel in terms of third house themes. So you might start to see sort of those third house themes expand. But also remember that North Node is in that Pisces 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long term goals. And Jupiter rules Pisces. So you could start to see sort of your immediate environment, any communication fields, relationships with siblings, short distance travel, technology, start to expand or be more well resourced. In addition to tying into those themes around sort of your social network and your long term goals playing a part in that. It's also worth noting Jupiter rules the eighth house. So, also tying in themes of, transformational work, your partner's resources if applicable, investments, assets, debt, loans, playing a part in potentially being able to expand certain areas. So I'm looking forward to this. In addition to this, very interesting, it's sort of like Jupiter enters, you know, Cancer, where it's exalted and it's has a lot of faith, a lot of ability to expand for better or worse. But as it enters Cancer on June 15th, 2025, it's going to square Saturn in Aries. So it's almost like we get a little test, a little maybe potential change or course of action before Jupiter's like, okay, before I really kind of expand this area, like where do we need to pump the brakes? Where do we need to sort of reconvene? And so it's going to square Saturn in that Aries 12th house. So the square is really involving maybe wanting to expand your communication, writing, exchanging information, relationships with siblings, short distance travel, any of those themes, immediate environment, while it's also potentially asking you to slow down mentally. And it could be an opportunity to think, restructure sort of what's going on mentally with career, public recognition, also sort of your overall growth and potential, and the necessary action in order to take advantage of that expansion regarding communication, relationships with siblings, sort of daily environment. So, again, I'll get into more detail as we get through the monthlies, but definitely it's interesting how there's that square where we're sort of being asked to pump the brakes in one area and expand in another area. But to me, it looks like more of a checkpoint for perspective, because if we want to expand, I think it's important to pause. It's sort of like Saturn's like, hey, let's pause and really think about what's our identity, what do we need to restructure um, before we expand. So I think my motto for this is sort of Jupiter's exalted ability to expand and create abundance, but with intention. We don't want to just expand an area for the sake of expanding it. It needs to make sense. And I think for you, it needs to make sense with Capricorn ninth house theme. So what you believe, what you know, and Aquarius 10th house themes of sort of career and public recognition. Now on June 25th, there will be a new moon in Cancer at 4 degrees, conjunct Jupiter at 3 degrees. So I think this new moon in Cancer is definitely going to play a part in this Jupiter square Saturn Neptune moment where something's dissolving to be sort of old mental patterns are sort of dissolving to build new ones in order to create action to expand in a particular area for you. And I think this new moon on June 25th is really an opportunity to say, okay, what real like new chapter do I want to start here, given what I've dissolved and, what old patterns or old structures are really not serving me anymore, so that I can create new patterns and new ways to expand for the long term that really support you mentally and also career wise. Then on June 29th, 2025, Mercury enters shadow at 3 degrees of Leo, which is your fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate. This shadow period is going to be from June 29th through July 18th. So pay attention to any contextual clues regarding home, family, property, and real estate. And because Mercury rules your second house of earned income and your fifth house, definitely pay attention to any themes with children if applicable, sort of, what home or living environments really supportive to your creativity, your self-expression, and any sort of money or financial themes that are tying into this contextual shadow period around home, family, property, and real estate. Now, July is interesting because, again, it's important to note that 2025, we have a lot of these outer planets moving into new signs and new territory for the first time in a very long time. So on July 7th, 2025, Uranus now enters your Gemini, second house of earned income, material possessions, and self worth. So Uranus is the planet of change and innovation. So it's also important to note, like, Uranus is entering an air sign, and not only an air sign, Gemini, which is technology and information. And Uranus is also going to start trining anything in your Aquarius 10th house of career and public recognition, and also your Libra 6th house of daily work, health, and routines. So, yes, on a very superficial, general level, Uranus in the second house can cause instability to finances. However, it is in, it's moving out of that earth where it's more earthquake energy. This is more to do, I think, if you're willing to move with the acceleration and the rapid change of sort of technology and society, I think you'll be fine. Because Uranus entering Gemini is a very information communicative sign. So this could indicate sort of changes and innovation to your finances through technology, through communication type fields, and how that positively or trine aspects sort of your career, your public recognition, your daily work, your side hustles, your routine, and your health. So very, very interesting. It will back up into Uranus again. So again, 2025 is interesting because we have a lot of these outer planets starting to ingress and move into new signs and new territory, but they sort of retrograde back. So it's like this weird year of like major shifts, but also kind of moving away from the old and moving into the new. Now, July 18th, 2025, Mercury will retrograde at 15 degrees Leo. This is your fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate. So remember that revisionary period involving what came up around June 29th through July 17th, give or take a day or two. Now, Mercury rules your earned income, your self-worth, also your creativity, your self-expression, how you have fun in life, and children if applicable. So this is really starting that potential revisionary period around home, family, property, and real estate, but tying in themes of finances, what's supporting your creativity, your self-expression, and children if applicable. Now, there's something very interesting happening towards the end of July that I am going to keep my eye on, because July 20th to July 21st, so this couple day period, Mars goes conjunct the South Node in Virgo on the 20th, causing this point of release. Now, again, we've had a lengthy Mars retrograde cycle, and Mars rules your long-term partnerships, personal, professional, also a marriage. It also rules your 12th house of that subconscious, sort of what's going on mentally, behind closed doors. So it's sort of like something is releasing, or you're letting go of something that is no longer serving you mentally, dream-wise, what you want to turn, turning the intangible to reality, anything that's, needs to be released or is not really serving you within a partnership. It doesn't necessarily mean like the end of a marriage or an end of a partnership. But it could just mean like something's closing out, or maybe you've been working on something within a partnership or within a marriage, and now you can kind of close it out together. But what's interesting is, like, as this release is happening, Venus in Gemini is going to square the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo at the same time. And Venus is going to be at a north bending, which is a point of increase. So Venus will be in your Gemini second house of earned income at a point of increase, where people, places, and things can sort of increase around the themes of finances or self-worth. That is increasing while there is this simultaneous release or letting go. So it's almost like releasing something that's really no longer serving you mentally or maybe not serving you within a partnership, or you're closing something out, a project or something you've been working on within a partnership, and it's allowing you to sort of increase the themes of finances, while Venus is at that north. And Venus in Gemini is like fairly, generally speaking, fairly happy there. So very, very interesting, because Venus also rules your sixth house of daily work, health, and routines. It also rules you. So increasing themes of sort of like work, um, how you show up in the world, and how that sort of maybe increases people, places, or things that could potentially increase like your earned income or your self-worth as you're simultaneously releasing something that's really not serving you anymore. So I got my eye on July. Very, very interesting time. But just keep in mind, Mercury is still retrograde as this point of increase and release is happening. So we're still in this revisionary period. So I would recommend, generally speaking, going into July having some level of adaptability or sort of openness to new perspectives as you're releasing and simultaneously increasing something that could bring sort of income or more self-worth to you. And finally, in August, specifically on August 11th, 2025, Mercury goes direct at 4 degrees of Leo in your fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate. So, July, we had some releasing, we had some, other themes increasing. But now, as we get into August, Mercury finally goes direct, sort of giving the green light, and specifically because Mercury rules your Gemini second house of earned income. So, whatever sort of came up or sort of themes that increased while Mercury was still retrograde in this area with Venus, this could indicate sort of the forward movement or the green light around maybe potential opportunities or situations and changes that sort of came up while you're also releasing things at the same time. So again, going into August, specifically August 11th onward, Mercury goes direct. I think you'll maybe see new perspectives or forward movement around plans, specifically in the area of home, family, property, and real estate as well, with hopefully increasing forward movement around finances as well. Then on August 12th, the next day, Venus goes conjunct Jupiter at 14 degrees Cancer in your Cancer third house of communication, daily environment, siblings, exchanging information, short distance travel. So I'm looking forward to this, to be completely honest. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer and Venus is the other benefic. Venus isn't too bad in Cancer. I think just Venus is more subjective. But with Jupiter being there exalted and pretty well resourced, I'm hoping Venus's subjective experience will be more benefic. Either way, we're talking about the two benefics joining together where one of them is exalted, very well resourced, and Venus rules your daily work, health, and routines. It also rules you, your body, self-identity. You have Jupiter ruling, your social network, your long-term goals, your partner's resources if applicable, your transformational work, your investments, your assets, where you merge and become mutually empowered. So I personally really like this, especially with Mercury being direct in your fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate. And you have these two benefics coming together in your immediate environment, especially with siblings, people, in your neighborhood, exchanging information, any communication fields. I really, really like for this. Specifically, Saturday, August 16th. Jupiter will actually reach its most exalted degree within Cancer. So each planet has, their point of exaltation, but they have their most exalted degree in those signs. And Jupiter at 15 degrees Cancer is its most exalted degree. So Saturday, August 16th could be particularly a good day for some. So if you have anything planned with friends, groups, communities, long-term goals, any long-term financial plans, transformational work goals, that could be a good day. That could be a good day. August 23rd, 2025. Again, I'm not talking about every new moon or full moon in this podcast episode, but the new moon in Virgo. So we're talking your Virgo 5th house. Look out for themes of new beginnings, new opportunities regarding creativity, self-expression, how you enjoy life, you have fun, romance, children if applicable. So new moon, new beginning in this area. However, it's going to quincunx Saturn in your Aries 12th house of that subconscious, limiting beliefs, what's going on with life vision, mental patterns. And the quincunx is really an uncomfortable adjustment. It's not the most major aspect, but I think it's worth noting where we're really ending the month of August with an opportunity to create a new chapter and a new beginning. And for you in the area of your children, if applicable, romance, if applicable, creativity, self-expression, especially if you're in any artistic areas, it will require some adjustment to your mental state. So just keep that in mind as you move through August. We have a lot of good stuff happening where Mercury goes direct in your 4th house of home and family. We have Venus conjunct Jupiter in your Cancer 3rd house. But then it's sort of like these things start moving forward, things start happening. But then this new moon around anything creative, self-expression, themes of children, romance, it's going to require you to make, more positive, structured adjustments to sort of your mental health in order to really take advantage of this new beginning. September 1st, 2025, Saturn's actually going to retrograde back into your Pisces 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. So again, this is really nothing new, but Saturn retrograding back into this area can allow you an opportunity to tie up any reconstruction, any loose ends that you sort of want to work on in the area of building a social network, surrounding yourself with the right people that align you to your long-term goals. But all in all, Saturn retrograding to this point in Pisces could bring us back to Saturn themes or Saturn ruled houses. For you, this is career, knowledge, beliefs, long distance travel, publishing, writing, if that's an area for you. So it could bring back those themes and sort of your social network and your long-term goals could come back for a little tying up of loose ends. And then on September 7th, 2025, I want to talk about this because I think the nitty-gritty details of this are potentially very important and they're going to be overlooked or forgotten. So September 7th, 2025, we're talking about eclipse season. So this could be 2 weeks before this point, 2 weeks after. So I'd pay attention to the end of August, pretty much all through September. But September 7th, there will be a full moon total lunar eclipse in Pisces at 15 degrees, 22 minutes. And the reason why I'm putting them in minutes is because when I looked at this eclipse in Pisces, it reminded me of the full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 18th, 2024. So, September 18th, 2024, we had a full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. September 7th, 2025, we have a full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. The full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 18th, 2024 was around Saturn, which was at 15 degrees, 16 minutes. Okay. So I'm going to repeat myself. September 18th, 2024, there was a full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces at 25 degrees. Saturn was also in Pisces, but at 15 degrees, 16 minutes. Fast forward to September 7th, 2025. Another full moon, this one total lunar eclipse in Pisces at 15 degrees, 22 minutes. So I'm looking at this full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 7th, which is 6 minutes away from where Saturn was, the last full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. So to me, this could potentially signal a story playing out with Saturn. And for you, Saturn rules your 10th house of career and public recognition, and your 9th house of knowledge, spirituality, and long distance travel. Excuse me. And when you had the last full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces in September of 2024, the ruler of that eclipse was Jupiter in Gemini, which is in detriment. And this time, in September of 2025, the ruler Jupiter will be in Cancer, be exalted. So again, very different situation, very different, things are in different places now. But I found it very interesting that potentially whatever is culminating, changing in September of 2025 with this eclipse in Pisces, again, friends, groups, communities, long-term goals, it could be also tying in sort of a culminating moment around maybe what happened or what was going on in September of 2024, where Saturn was kind of literally 6 minutes away from, that signature point, basically. So I found that very, very interesting. Again, it could mean absolutely nothing, but I think that might be kind of significant with the Saturn cycle and how it's playing a part. So if you had any career, education, travel situation that changed or caused some sudden something back in or around September 2024, note it, and we'll see what sort of plays out September 2025, with it being literally 6 minutes away from where the last eclipse happened, where Saturn was. So very, very interesting. Again, as we get closer throughout 2025, I'm going to go into more detail with that, but that's something that I will be kind of keeping a close eye on. And of course, where there's one eclipse, there's another. And so September 21st, 2025, we get the second in the pair. So September 21st, new moon, partial solar eclipse in Virgo at 29 degrees. So anaretic degree, it's a partial solar eclipse, but it's still an eclipse. So this is a new beginning, a new chapter in the Virgo area for you, which is your creativity, your self-expression, children if applicable, romance, and overall just finding joy in life. So this could definitely be creating a new chapter that's playing out here. It's partial, but with it being at the last degree in Virgo, that could add an element of intensity. But the ruler of this eclipse in Virgo will actually be in mutual reception with Venus. And Venus is your ruling planet. So for you in particular, pay attention to that. So with the ruler of this eclipse, Mercury, being in mutual reception with Venus, and Venus in this mutual reception, basically two planets trying to help each other out, Venus will actually have triplicity, which is a good thing. Venus has the friends and the network to support and to help out, basically. And so I would look to, especially because Venus is your ruling planet as a Taurus rising, I would look to Venus or Venus areas of your chart, which is going to be you, your appearance, how you show up in the world, and also your daily work, your health, and your routine, and also coworkers as potential support to creating this new chapter around creativity, self-expression, romance, and or children if applicable. I'm actually going to skip through most of October and get to October 20th, 2025. Again, through the monthlies, I'll add more detail, but for the yearlies, I kind of want to get to the point, if you know what I mean. So October 20th, 2025, Mercury enters shadow in Scorpio through November 9th. So October 20th through November 9th, Mercury will be in shadow in your Scorpio, 7th house of marriage, long-term partnership, whether it's personal or professional. And this could be the period of contextual clues. Now, Mercury rules your 2nd house of earned income and also that 5th house of creativity, self-expression, enjoying life, children if applicable, romance. So financial themes, and also, your creative projects, enjoying life, romance, and or children if applicable could be themes sort of integrated within this shadow period, building contextual clues around a partnership, the desire for partnership, whether it's personal or professional. Now, Mercury in Scorpio is an interesting Mercury. So there are some, in terms of Mercury entering shadow in Scorpio, we're talking about a very different Mercury, where this Mercury is not, and again, it depends on where your natal Mercury is, but generally speaking, this Mercury is not about small talk. This Mercury wants to dive deep and uncover the layers and, get to the deeper parts. So in terms of communicating any contextual clues or stories that come up, or kind of building up to this revisionary period, I think communication overall with the other people in your life or the partnerships in your life could have a deeper element to it. It's also important to note that when Mercury enters shadow in Scorpio, it's actually going to join Mars in Scorpio. Mars is home in Scorpio, which is good. But there's two different Mars. There's an Aries Mars and a Scorpio Mars. The Aries Mars wants to go, will physically make it happen. The Scorpio Mars is going to sit back and figure out the way. It will find the solution. It will figure out the way. And so this tells me whatever is coming up involving maybe finances, children, creativity, self-expression, enjoying life, or any creative projects you have going on within a partnership or just with you individually, the influence or the energy is indicative of being able to communicate in deeper ways to find better solutions. So just want to note that. So definitely pay attention to what's going to come up and where you can really find the solution, you can really find the way, and in a way where maybe you're uncovering deeper information in order to do so. But just be aware, it is a shadow period. We will be reviewing and revising. Then on October 22nd, 2025, it's important to note, Neptune is going to retrograde back into your Pisces 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. Nothing new. Neptune was there for a very long time. But again, 2025, these outer planets are shifting into new territory, but then also kind of tiptoeing a little bit back, allowing us the time to tie up loose ends or make any last minute necessary changes before we really move into full-fledged new territory, new energy, new ways of living, essentially. So something to keep in mind in October, but Neptune retrograding back into your Pisces 11th house could be bringing you back to March, April of 2025, where Neptune was around these degrees specifically. But, Neptune is retrograding out of a very initiating and fiery sign of Aries into more cooler, dissolving waters of Pisces. So, again, good thing to just kind of zoom out, get that perspective. What last minute changes or perspectives or dissolution of things do you want to change regarding, friends, groups, communities, long-term goals? Some of you may, some of you may not, but either way, Neptune will be backing out of your Aries 12th house of that subconscious. So you will get a little bit of a break. And again, those outer planets backing up into the signs they were in previously sort of continues in November, specifically on November 7th, 2025, when Uranus backs into or retrogrades back into your Taurus first house of self, body appearance, identity. Again, nothing new, but it could signal any last minute changes or tying up of loose ends regarding any change or innovation to, yourself, your appearance, your identity, and how you show up in the world. Now, November 9th, Mercury finally goes retrograde. It's 6 degrees of Sagittarius. So Mercury does rule your second house of earned income. It's going retrograde in your 8th house of investments, assets, debt, loans, taxes, your partner's resources, if that's applicable. So this is also the house of transformation. So it could signal self-worth, transformational stuff as well. So Mercury going retrograde at 6 degrees Sagittarius, November 9th, is worth noting because December 2024, Mercury went direct at 6 degrees Sagittarius. This is sort of a typical thing that Mercury does with the cycles sometimes. But if I see, something retrograding or going direct at the same degree, a year later or down the road, it's worth noting. Could be part of a story where maybe you're having a totally different perspective on whatever Mercury rules in your chart. For you, it's money, self-worth, and creativity, self-expression, how you enjoy life. And now it could signal sort of having a different perspective from whatever was going on in those areas the very end of 2024. This may or may not resonate or apply to you. Again, it's a typical thing with Mercury, but if I see it, I say it. And November 29th, I'm really ending the month in this episode where Mercury finally goes direct at 20 degrees Scorpio. So it's worth noting that Mercury going direct at 20 degrees Scorpio, which is your 7th house of marriage, long-term partnership, personal, professional. Mercury going direct November 29th is happening after a new moon. in Scorpio. So the new moon was, I believe, on November 20th. So sort of like this new moon happens, giving you an opportunity to kind of create a new chapter, a new something you want to kind of play out over the next 5 or 6 months regarding partnership in your life. But then, a few days later on November 29th, Mercury finally goes direct in that same area, signaling, it's probably part of the story. So Mercury going direct around, for you specifically, finances, self-worth, creativity, self-expression, children themes, if applicable, really enjoying more life. So this could actually signal a time where if you are partnered up, finding new plans or new budgets to incorporate more fun, more joy within partnership. It could also signal plans or budgets for any project that you're working on within a partnership, whether it's personal or professional as well. So definitely sort of an interesting November, really interesting end of 2025 where things kind of back up and give us a chance to kind of tie up loose ends, but also kind of create new plans. And for you, sort of like, there's a lot of like financial plans sort of tying up, it seems like. But that new moon, the end of November 29th, is really, I think, a great new chapter or new beginning within personal and professional relationships that also kind of tie in themes of maybe finances or financial budgets or creativity, self-expression, and also potentially giving you that opportunity to create more joy, more pleasure within partnership. So December, we're really at the end of 2025. I'm really going to get to December 4th, 2025, where this full moon in Gemini at 13 degrees is going to be very interesting because this full moon in Gemini is illuminating, culminating the area of earned income and self-worth for you as we get into December. But this isn't any old full moon. This one is actually going to square the nodes in Pisces and Virgo, creating this mutable grand cross. So again, this is the moon. The moon moves very quickly, so this will be brief. This isn't going to last long, but I think it's worth noting because for you specifically, you're having something culminate and highlight and illuminate the area of finances and self-worth. And because it's a full moon, you have the moon in your second house of earned income. You have the sun in your eighth house of transformation, other people's resources, the investment, your partner's resources, partner's money, where you merge finances or assets or investments here, whether you're in a partnership or not. So you have this full moon basically highlighting your money houses. And it is exactly squaring the north node in your Pisces 11th house of your social network and your long-term goals. And it is squaring the south node in your 5th house of creativity, self-expression, enjoying life, having fun, children if applicable, okay? So it's literally creating this cross. And so yes, it is a full moon, but if you take into account the mutable grand cross is going to briefly form, there's a lot of potential for change, but with a level of a lot of adaptability, right? Mutable is the ability to adapt, to bend, not break. So I think it's probably important to note that yes, something's culminating with finances, but because it's squaring the nodes, it's creating a more stable structure, technically. But it's immutable, so there could be a lot of adaptability and change with what comes up, but it's important to note that mutable grand crosses are prone to changing too much. So I think because you're a Taurus rising and that's a fixed rising, like myself. Fixed, we tend to hold. We tend to, hold for the long haul, typically, generally speaking. So this actually might be a little bit of a welcomed energy where we can sort of adapt or bend instead of break. Um, Again, I'll get into more detail as I get into the monthlies, but I would say definitely pay attention to sort of the financial areas of your life as you get into December and how there will be potential opportunities between creativity, self expression, your social network, and your long term goals to make necessary changes and adapt accordingly. The last thing I want to talk about in December is specifically on December 15th, 2025, when Mars enters Capricorn. Now, again, I'm going to get into some, general insight into 2025. But I think it's important to note Mars entering your Capricorn ninth house is exalted. This is a very energetic Mars. And most of the time over the years, I've noticed Mars going into Capricorn, people just tend to have a lot more energy, a lot more action. But if you're prone to like working out too much, or you're prone to like anxiety and just going, Mars going into Capricorn can make you more susceptible to overdoing it. Sort of like we can burn ourselves out. So just be aware of that, especially going into holidays if you celebrate the holidays. But this is entering the area of your ninth house of higher education, publishing, spirituality. Really, like the ninth house is our growth and potential. So this is really heating up the area of the chart associated with your growth and potential. It is also important to note that Mars rules that seventh house of partnership, whether it's personal or professional, and also that 12th house of the subconscious. So it is going to integrate themes of sort of what's going on mentally and how that's affecting sort of your growth and potential, and also themes of partnership regarding that growth and potential as you're sort of closing out 2025. But it's important to note to zoom out and gain some perspective on this. You have to remember last year in 2024, we had Mars in shadow, Mars going retrograde, the end of 2024. Okay, so Mars was retrograding back into Cancer, where it was actually in fall. So by essential dignity, not in the best of positions. But in 2024, we had Mars retrograding, causing this really lengthy revisionary period around how we take action in particular areas of our life. And, it was not in its happiest placement. We also had Jupiter in Gemini, which is Jupiter in detriment. So now fast forward to the very end of 2025, and we have Mars exalted in Capricorn, really amping up the action and the energy. And we have Jupiter exalted in Cancer, having a lot of faith, a lot of abundance, and a lot of resources to expand that. So we're in an entirely different position regarding action and expansion towards the end of 2025. Now, I want to discuss a couple notes, a couple closing statements, a little bit of 2025, but really sort of giving a little bit perspective on 2026 to think about as you listen to 2025. Jupiter will enter Leo in 2026. So, yes, we get Jupiter entering Cancer, its sign of exaltation, in 2025. But it's important to note that whatever faith, abundance, and expansion, that happens or is sort of created throughout 2025. It's sort of like, that Jupiter entering the next sign of Leo, which is your fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate, is, going to gear you up to expand potentially, literally, the foundation of your chart: home, family, property, and real estate, and whatever that means to you specifically. But when Jupiter enters Leo, Jupiter is going to get out of those squares that we've been experiencing with Saturn. So 2024, 2025, we've periodically had some Jupiter-Saturn squares that, can be challenging because Jupiter wants to expand and Saturn wants to pump the brakes. Saturn wants to pump the brakes and be like, whoa, do we have the right foundation? Do we have, the discipline? Do we have the knowledge? Do we have the things that we need in order to expand properly for longevity? Now, as we get into 2026, Jupiter makes its way eventually into Leo. It's going to start to trine Aries, where Saturn is. And so whether it trines by degree or just by co-presence, either way, they're going to be in a configuration where they're a little bit more likely to allow things to happen. Things could, trines are sort of configurations where things happen more naturally, more with ease, for better or worse. They're not always a positive thing. But either way, it's sort of like where we need to stop and pause and think to, leap forward and expand. I think that might be a little bit of a different feel compared to the square, which can be quite tense in order to get us to take action. So there was more action necessary to make change versus a trine where things sort of flow and happen. So that's something that I have my eye on between Jupiter and Saturn. Basically, their relationship is going to change. And we're talking fire signs, so very initiating, very go type of energy. Now, additionally, Uranus will enter your Gemini second house, which I already discussed in this podcast episode. But when Uranus enters your Gemini second house of earned income and self-worth, it will also start to trine Pluto in your Aquarius 10th house of career and public recognition. So with Uranus and Pluto in a trine configuration, I think there could be rapid changes and transformation to the areas of your Gemini second house of earned income and self-worth, and also your 10th house of career and public recognition. Now, again, these houses also trine your 6th house of daily work, health, routine, and coworkers. So don't forget about that. But I think collectively we could see a huge acceleration of old patterns dying off and new technology, ways of communicating information, and sort of new ways of making money, new ways of doing business, new ways of having a career. Could be something on the table for many of you. But I think, this rapid acceleration and transformation change around maybe community-based business or different ways of doing business, and also different ways of living increasing. Also, the North Node is going to move in to your Aquarius 10th house of career and public recognition. So this is another indicator of increasing themes of career and public recognition that will be taking place, in addition to all these other outer planets moving into different configurations. And so ultimately, the Leo Aquarius axis collectively, I think, is really highlighting, the individual need versus the collective need. But for you, it's really highlighting sort of your home and family needs versus your career and public recognition needs. So, something to think about as you are moving into 2026 or gearing up throughout 2025. And lastly, the Saturn Neptune joining in 2025, like I've already discussed, we have Saturn structure, Neptune dissolving. So, dissolving old structures, dissolving old patterns to rebuild something to basically trailblaze into the new in 2025. But again, they go conjunct in early 2026. I believe it's February 2026, where they're actually going to go conjunct at 0 degrees Aries. So 0 degrees Aries is a critical degree. It's also what's called the Aries point. So this adds more sensitivity and significance, in my opinion, to this conjunction that rarely happens. And so I think individually and collectively, we could definitely see major dissolving of old patterns and old structures to pave way for the new. But with that being said, it is an incredible time to be alive with all of you.